Silent News, a summary of national and international news for the deaf and hard of hearing. The stories are signed by Henry Whalen using American Sign Language, or ASL. The interpreter is Michael Vorontsov. And now, here's Henry Whalen.
Hello and welcome to Silent News. Police in Toronto are hunting now for suspects wanted in the firebombing of the Morgentaler Abortion Clinic. Ontario's first abortion clinic was destroyed early Monday morning, and what's left of the structure will be torn down. More now from Kelly Crow.
Bits of the building were scattered along the quiet downtown street early this morning, blown apart by a powerful explosion. The blast blew out 2 double brick walls on the main floor, spewing glass and this plastic window pane all the way across the street.
Had you been outside here, you would have been seriously injured, I can tell you that.
But there were no injuries?
No, not one, not even a scratch.
Fire investigators immediately began searching for a cause. Okay. For Dr. Henry Morgentaler, there was no question.
No doubt in my mind that the reactionary, religious bigots and fanatics who are against women's rights have set this up.
Anti-abortion activist Ken Campbell said his group had nothing to do with the explosion, but he said he wasn't surprised.
This is only what we've warned government agencies and the judiciary would be the consequence of the failure to stop the violence against humanity at such facilities as this.
You're too old for this.
For these pro-choice activists, it's another episode in the controversial saga of this clinic. It opened to outrage from anti-abortion groups 9 years ago. Since then, it has been the target of arson more than once, here in July of 1983, and again just 4 months ago. And protests like this became so common, Morgentaler applied for and won an injunction keeping anti-abortionists off the street. Today, he said, this setback only strengthens his resolve.
It makes me even more determined to provide services to women across the country in provinces where access to good, safe medical abortion does not yet exist.
While investigators try to figure out what happened here at the clinic, Morgentaler is scrambling to take care of patients, the more than 20 women who come here for abortions every day. Until he can rebuild, Morgentaler is hoping the city's other 3 clinics can handle the extra cases. Kelly Crow, CBC News, Toronto.
The people of Pictou County, Nova Scotia, gathered this week to remember those killed in the West Ray mine disaster. Patricia Chu reports.
The streets of Pictou County were almost deserted. Schools remain shut. Most businesses closed their doors at noon. Hours before the service began, hundreds waited silently in line. The only building large enough to contain them was the local arena, the same building that last week served as the miners' morgue. Still, many had to listen from outside. Inside, the presence of dignitaries was a reminder that the tragedy had touched many Canadians.
In the dark moments the past week and 10 days, we kept watch with you. We were awed by your courage and devotion throughout this ordeal.
There was praise, too, for the miners who searched 6 days for their trapped comrades. Sean Crockett, a nephew of one of the miners who died, spoke on behalf of all the victims' families.
From the valiant dragoman to the prayerful school children, may they all be blessed for their thoughtful and generous hearts.
John Thomas Bates, Larry Arthur Bell.
The families laid roses at the foot of a shroud-draped cross as the names of the 26 dead were read out. One of the dead is 32-year-old Miles Gillis, a miner for 6 years and father of 3. Just a week before his death, Gillis told his wife he was worried about safety in the West Ray mine.
He said, Isabel, if I ever die underground, he said, promise me that you'll have a full investigation into my death.
The province has promised a full investigation. But today was a day to show support for the survivors, as much as to say goodbye to the victims. Patricia Chu, CBC News, New Glasgow, Nova Scotia.
The Bank of Canada rate has dropped again. It now stands at 6.5%. That's the lowest mark in about 2 decades. The country's chartered banks have followed the lead of the central bank. They have all dropped their prime rates to 7.5%. The prime rate is the interest rate charged to a bank's most creditworthy corporate customers. Canada's Finance Minister Don Mazankowski says lower interest rates will help restore the economy to solid growth. Three young men were charged with first-degree murder this week in connection with the shootings at a McDonald's restaurant in Sydney River, Nova Scotia. A crowd of about 300 people, mostly high school students, gathered outside chanting, "Killers, killers." The 3 suspects were arrested last week and range in age from 18 to 23. 4 people were shot in the head during the McDonald's robbery. 3 of the victims, all restaurant employees, died. 1 woman remains in critical condition. Ceasefires in the breakaway Republic of Bosnia-Herzegovina continue to be broken on a routine basis. Order has broken down to the point that UN peacekeepers, including Canadians, have pulled out of some areas. Michael McIver has more on one such evacuation.
The UN under fire. These pictures were taken by Canadian Army cameraman Christian Coulon when intense fighting broke out in Sarajevo last Thursday. Along with other UN staff, he was staying in a hotel in the city center that was right in the middle of the battle. Across the street, a sniper fires. So far, the hotel has not been hit. All the UN staff were told to have breakfast. Son of a bitch, eh? A mortar suddenly hits at the far end of the hotel. People are on their feet and, without being told, are heading for the basement. At this point, no one is sure if it's a random shot or if the UN contingent's under attack. Then another huge explosion. A shell has hit the restaurant, destroying a section where, moments before, the UN staff, including 5 Canadians, were eating breakfast. 300 people spend most of the next 3 days living in the basement of the hotel. They find, when they eventually emerge, that the damage is extensive. It's decided there's no point in staying. It's hopeless trying to run a peacekeeping operation from Sarajevo. A few peacekeepers stay behind. The rest of the UN staff head out in 2 convoys over 2 days toward the safety of Belgrade.